Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm so glad that you are here and I'm excited about what we're going to make today in the kitchen. It is one of my favorite things. I wouldn't say my favorite things to make because this is my first time making it. Well, my second time. I did it one time and it turned out the bomb, so I figured I was going to do a video on it. So today we are making breakfast sandwiches that are completely vegan. Y'all, I love breakfast sandwiches. Like love, 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 love. I always have. I've always loved like a sausage and a biscuit, with some egg or something like that. Like I love breakfast sandwiches. And so I will make them, usually here or there. Well, I had this idea from watching someone else about making some breakfast sandwiches for the freezer. So we're going to make probably a good dozen or so. I think the first time I made this recipe, we got 16 out of the deal. So I should get somewhere, at least a dozen, somewhere between, 12 and 15 breakfast sandwiches that we can put in the freezer that we'll have, that we can just kind of grab and go. Now, I made this for the first time last week. Y'all, they didn't even make it to the freezer. They did not make it to the freezer. Me, my husband, and my son devoured those things in 3 days flat. And it was so funny. I think my husband got the last one and my son came in. He had, his mouth was ready. It was ready. And what happened to the breakfast sandwich? And then you know how you start counting off, like, how many did you have? And how many did you have? It was that good. And this is, so if you are vegan or vegetarian, this is a great recipe for you. If you're not vegan or vegetarian, you can do the exact same thing. You would just use real meat, real egg, real cheese. It's the same concept. But here's the kicker that we're going to do today. We're making them on English muffins, and we're making homemade sourdough English muffins to make the base for our breakfast sandwiches. So the breakfast sandwiches, like to make a breakfast sandwich, I mean, that's pretty easy. Put what you want on it. You got to have some bread, a meat, an egg, and cheese and all that. But when you make homemade sourdough English muffins, it takes it to a whole nother level. So this video is, I'm going to show you the process of how to make homemade sourdough English muffins that we're going to turn into a breakfast sandwich for the freezer. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that. You can just make the English muffins and put some butter and jelly and whatever else you want on it, or some honey. You can put them in the freezer. You can eat them throughout the week. You can do whatever you want. But once you learn this skill, you're not going to go back and buy those, what are those? Those Thomas English muffins out of the store. It don't even compare. It does not even compare. So this is my second attempt at making English muffins. The first time I made English muffins, it had a good taste, but something didn't go right. Something didn't go right. Like the shape was off. Like I couldn't get the perfect, I don't know. It just wasn't right. But you know me, I had to go back in the lab and do it again. And the second time it turned out great. The first time I did a yeast recipe. I don't think I did sourdough. Because the thing with sourdough is that you kind of have to plan ahead. You're not usually gonna say, oh, I want sourdough today and get it the same day. It's usually gonna be the next day. So that is, I'm not gonna say a downside. You just have to be intentional when you're doing sourdough. But sourdough is so great for your gut health. And a lot of people that are intolerant of like bread and gluten. Now the sourdough I make is not a gluten-free. I don't know how to make gluten-free. Haven't quite figured that out yet. But what I do know is that people who have intolerances can typically eat sourdough bread before they can eat like a traditional yeast bread, and it doesn't make them sleepy. It doesn't give them stomach pain. It doesn't make them, just feel full and bloated because of the sourdough. So definitely sourdough is a healthier option for you than just regular bread, especially if you have some type of intolerances or it makes you sleepy, bloated, and all the things. I know that some of you are going to say, yes, love sourdough, don't know how to do it. That's okay. I got you. I will be doing a sourdough class at the end of September. It's going to be September the 29th if you want to go ahead and hold the date. It is going to be a virtual online class from 2 to 4 for 2 hours. It is Sourdough Baking 101. I will have the link up on my website probably in the next week or so. But go ahead and hold the date. With that class, you're going to get a dehydrated starter. So if you don't know how to start your own starter, I'm going to give you one. I will mail it and ship it to you when you purchase the class. So you don't have to even worry about that. I got you on that. And then I'm going to take you through the science of sourdough, how it works, how to rehydrate your starter, how to start a starter if you want to start your own, and just the basics of baking with sourdough. It is not as intimidating as you think it is. just think about the sourdough starter is like your yeast. That's it in a nutshell. So if you can bake with yeast, you can bake with sourdough. It's just a different, you have to be more intentional, you have to be more planful. And again, I do both. And this is from somebody who did not know how to bake bread 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I did not know how to do yeast bread 2 years ago. I've been doing sourdough bread, I think going on for 4 years. But before that, y'all, I could not get bread for anything. So I'm telling you, if I can do it, you can do it too. So let's get into making our sourdough English muffins. I'm gonna take you back to last night when I started the process, because it was kind of late at night. I wasn't really, camera ready, so to speak. So I just shot footage of me doing it, and I voiced it over so that you can see what I did, and I'll put the ingredients and the recipe either up here or down in the description below. So let's go back to see the step that I did last night, and then I'll bring you back to present day. Okay, so I have all my ingredients out, and you can see I already have another bowl over there with a tea towel on it. I was making bread as well as English muffins. Was doing a whole lot of stuff in the kitchen on this particular night. So I'm getting my starter ready, and I'm looking at my book. So this recipe is in the book Sourdough Made Simple by Emily Raffa. It is in my Amazon store. I highly recommend the book if you need help with sourdough and you like reading books and having a resource on hand. So I'm measuring out my sourdough. It's 1/3 of a cup, and instead of me trying to remember all the measurements, I'll try to put it up here at the top of the video, but just know where the recipe came from if you want to go and grab the recipe if you actually have that book. So I'm putting my sourdough starter in there. Another thing that I had to do was warm up milk, butter, and water. Melt that all together. And so I had already done that step and then let it cool till at least a lukewarm temperature before I'm going to add it into my sourdough. So also let me mention that the sourdough starter needs to be active and bubbly. So this is a true sourdough recipe. It is not a sourdough discard recipe. So your sourdough does need to be active, bubbly, and ready to go. So I got my sourdough in there. Next, you have to add some sugar to the mix, and then also some oil as well. Okay, so now you see me adding in the mixture that I talked about, the butter, the milk, and the water. So for me, I'm just using a plant-based version. You can use whatever you normally use for your milk and your butter. So I had let that all melt together and warmed up on the stove. You could obviously do it in the microwave as well and let it get to just a cool temperature, a lukewarm temperature. So I've added that in. Now I'm grabbing the salt to add the salt in there. So basically the mixture is going to be your sourdough starter, oil, sugar, the water, the milk, and the butter, and some salt. And did I say oil? Oil. So that's going to be all the ingredients that you need to make these amazing sourdough English muffins. Now, obviously, the next ingredient, we got to add our flour. So I'm using an all-purpose flour for this. So I'm going to weigh my flour out. I think it's 500 grams if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, don't get me quoting these measurements because I made like 2 different types of bread recipes on this particular night. But I'm adding in my flour. It's essential that if you're going to do sourdough, the measurements are precise. So you have to have a digital scale. This is not an area where you're going to eyeball it, guess, estimate. You need a digital scale to make sure that you have the exact measurement, because 500 grams of flour versus 550 grams of flour is going to make a big difference in your sourdough baking. So now once we have all of our ingredients in there, we are going to mix it all together and to incorporate it. I will tell you the mixture is going to be sticky to the touch once you finally mix it with the fork, and then you can get your hands in there to fully incorporate the flour. It is going to start off sticky. So if you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're not. It is going to be a sticky consistency. It's not going to be smooth on this first pass. I'm showing you the consistency here. You can see it's just tacky, it's sticky. And then I'm going to actually get in here with my hands and try to incorporate it all together, and making sure the flour is incorporated in all of the ingredients. And again, it's going to be sticky on your hands, so just know that when you make this first pass. So now I'm just going to cover it with a damp tea towel, and I'm going to let it rest for 1 hour. And then after that hour, I come back and form it into a ball. So but for about 15 or 20 seconds, I just kind of roll it around into a ball, and then I let it sit overnight, so 8 to 10 hours until the next day. Okay, guys, so this is our dough that has doubled. And so what you miss is when I woke up this morning, it had doubled, and then I've had it in the refrigerator for like the last, I would say, 6 to 7 hours, because you do want it to chill in the refrigerator. So I started mine at night. You could obviously start this in the morning. So let's say you want to do like I say a Monday morning, you would make the dough like we made in the first step. You would let that rise. Instead of it rising overnight, it would rise in the middle of the day on Monday. And then once it's risen, you would put it in the refrigerator on Monday night. And then you would wake up the next morning and get ready to bake your English muffin. So that's the step that we're on. So we mixed it all together. I let it do its first bulk rise, but mine was overnight for about 8 hours. And then I've put it in the refrigerator for the last 6 or 7 hours. So I'm about to put it on a floured surface without a T, and let it rest for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to shape our English muffins. So I'm going to bring you back when it's time to shape them. We're going to just let this dough rest for about 10 minutes to kind of acclimate to the temperature and do what it's going to do, and then we'll come back. Okay, so the dough has rested, and then what I've done is I have a cookie sheet. I lined it with some parchment paper, and then I sprinkled some cornmeal on it. So traditionally, cornmeal is dusted on the bottom of English muffins. It helps prevent it from sticking. And so our dough is still, cold, but I just put some flour on my hands, and we're just kind of making it into a rectangle square. We're just basically flattening it out, and you want to get it to like it's a 1/2 inch thick. Now, I experimented the last time I did it, and I did some thicker than others to see what we would like. I definitely like the thinner ones better, because by the time you load on your sausage, your egg, and your cheese, then it can be pretty thick. And again, that's just personal preference. So you can see here, I just kind of have it laid out like that. And then I'm going to take a biscuit cutter that's like, I think it's 3 inches diameter. Now, the first recipe I used didn't tell me to do this. I should have just used my intuition, because your intuition in the kitchen, I believe, is always right. I think we rolled it and shaped it. That's why my shape was off. But this works great. So I'm just going to use a biscuit cutter almost like I'm doing biscuits. So you can see that is kind of the thinness of it right there. Again, personal preference. You can make this thicker if you want. I probably wouldn't suggest any thinner. And so I'm just going to go through and make all these and see how many I get. I think last time I got 16. The recipe says you get 12, but I got 16, and I was here for it, because when I say we devoured it, it was devoured in 3 days. They didn't even make it to the freezer. So I'm just going to keep cutting these, and we're going to lay these on the parchment paper with the cornmeal, and then we're going to let them rise for an hour. So they're going to get slightly a bit puffier. So you can see on this side, that's a little bit thicker than some of the other ones that I did, because this side over here, I didn't roll out as much, which is fine. So we already have 10. So we're going to take the rest of our dough. Just like your grandma taught you, don't get rid of this dough. You can still use it, right? And I'm just gonna, now I could get my rolling pin and roll this out, but that's just one more thing to wash. Who wants to do that? So I just do it with my hands. And I'll put a little bit more flour on my hands just to make it easier. And then I'll cut some more out. And obviously, I guess you could use just egg and cheese. You could do bacon if you wanted to. It's whatever you want on your breakfast sandwich. Or like I said, you don't even have to do breakfast sandwiches. You can just have the English muffins as is. And y'all, this is a much cheaper way, because if you go to McDonald's, if you eat out or something like that, go to McDonald's and get you a McGriddle, or what do they call it, the English McMuffin. I think you're gonna pay probably between $3 and $4 just for one breakfast sandwich. Here, we're making our own. Come on, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, I got 15, okay, 16. So I guess I can just say that this recipe makes 16 because that's what I got the last time. Now I could roll this out and get one more. Might as well, we don't want to waste it. So that's 17. We'll put that little guy on there right there. Do we want to make this one to one? See, this is what I did before. I like rolled it out. My shape was all off. The taste was okay, but my shape was off. We can use this one as our test one, and I'll tell you what that means when we get to it. Okay, so we have about 18 on here. So now we're just gonna cover this. You can see what they look like here. We're gonna cover this with a damp tea towel for about an hour and let them rise one last time and puff up, and then we're gonna cook them. So I'll bring you back in an hour when it's time to cook them, and then we're gonna start getting the stuff ready to assemble our sandwiches. Okay guys, it's been about an hour. Our English muffins are ready. Let me show you, and we are about to cook them. So, okay, so you can see that they have puffed up and risen somewhat. I'm gonna sprinkle the tops with cornmeal, so that way when I flip them over, they won't stick. I have my cornmeal right here. I'm also in the process of cooking dinner at the same time as shooting this video. So y'all know how it goes. Stuff everywhere in the kitchen because y'all, I'm busy. I have to get it in when I can. And we're actually headed out of town in the morning for a week. So that's another reason why I'm making these, so that we can have them as well. And then I gotta pack up all the stuff. You know how it goes. A working mother, hardest job in America, in the world. So let me, I got my electric skillet, or you could use a griddle, or you could even do them in the oven if you want to. I just find it's easier for me to do it in a griddle, so that way I can kind of monitor it. I can see it instead of having to keep opening the oven back and forth. You're gonna make sure that you have it on low heat. So the key to making sure that your English muffins are good is to use a balanced heat, not too high, because if you do it too high, they're gonna brown on the top or the bottom, and then they're gonna still be gooey on the inside. If you do it too low, then obviously, you know, it may never cook. So when I did it the first time, I averaged about 10 minutes each side, 10 to 12 minutes, somewhere along in there. So I'm gonna start with 10 minutes. I have my griddle or my electric skillet on like 200, 250. So I am going to just place them in there. And because I'm using like a bigger surface, then I can also get more in there. And remember, we sprinkle the parchment paper with cornmeal. So it already has cornmeal on the bottom so that it doesn't stick. You don't have to spray your pan or anything because the cornmeal is there to keep it from sticking. Again, you do have to make sure you watch these. So once you do it once and you kind of know how your cooking equipment works, you'll know how long it's going to take. I started off with like 8 minutes on each side, and that didn't do it. So when I bumped it up to 10 to 12 minutes each side, that worked out perfectly. So we got 11, and so we'll do 11 in this batch. And I actually set my timer again, so that I didn't forget about it, because if you're a cook like me that got a lot of things going on, I use a timer on timer on timer. I'm always got a time. Something going off right now. It's my food in the oven. I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. I'll come back and check it, and then we'll flip it. I'll let you see the finished look, and then we'll do the second batch. At the same time, I'm going to be getting my other stuff ready. Okay guys, all the English muffins are done. So let me show you what they look like. So you can see here. Now I will tell you that when I do it, the method that I showed you in my electric griddle for like 12 minutes on each side, they don't get brown. I'm sure I can make them brown if I just cooked them longer or turned up the heat, but I just didn't want to risk doing that, especially because I was not paying that close attention. I was kind of doing other things and just had it on a timer. So what I do, because I like all of my bread to be brown, I don't like bread that's light. That's just a personal preference. So I actually stuck mine under the broiler for like a couple of minutes because I want them to be brown. And like, see, like this one, like it's real light. I don't prefer that. It doesn't affect the taste. It's just a personal preference. But we have all of our English muffins done. Let me, and you can just open them. Just take a fork around the side and open them. But I like to use a serrated knife because to me, that's just a lot easier. So let me cut one open so you can see the inside. Look at that. That's how it looks on the inside. So now, y'all, all we have to do is assemble our things for the breakfast sandwiches. So let me show you what we're using. And again, this is a plant-based breakfast sandwich. If you're not plant-based, just substitute with what you like to eat. But if you are plant-based, let me show you what I use. So we use these sausage patties here by Beyond. They have an original and they have a spicy. I always get the spicy because I like a kick. So I buy this. And then for cheese, we use the Via Life cheddar cheese. Via Life is a great brand. They have cheddar shreds, provolone, feta, what else? Like a smoky cheddar. They have a Gouda, but I love this brand of plant-based cheese. And then I'm using Just Egg. So they have Just Egg in a liquid form, but these are actually folded, and they come in little packets like this. So I'm gonna open one and let you see. It comes just like a folded, just like when you go to McDonald's, the folded egg. Now for me, even when I used to eat like at McDonald's and eat the egg, the sandwiches that they would have, I don't like thick. Like I don't like my biscuits thick. I don't like my pancakes thick. Like I'm a textures person. So I just prefer things more thin than thick when it comes to like certain textures. So for me, whenever I would get one, I would always cut it in half and just throw the rest of the other part away. For this, what I do is I actually make 4 out of 1. Let me show you how I do that. Okay, so it comes like this, like I showed you. Basically, I'm just gonna take a knife or a serrated knife and just go down the middle to put it in half. And again, it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be. It's going to go in your mouth. And then I just cut that part in half and that part in half. So when it goes to assembling, we're going to put our meat. We're going to take, because you see how that's hanging over. I could cut that in half if I wanted to. So that's this size, which is what I prefer. That's, again, personal preference. So I take the egg, a piece of cheese, put the top on it, put it in the microwave. Now, because this is not frozen, things have cooled off. So, you know, I wouldn't want to eat it because it's not warm. But I would put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds, and it's going to be good to go. Now, I've already done one, so let me show you. Let me show you. Ooh, it's hot, 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 hot. That is the sandwich. Yikes, it is hot. But let me, y'all, I don't need to be eating this because I'm about to eat dinner, but I gotta show you on camera. It's hot. I feel weighted. Now, let me go get something. Now, what I put on mine is jalapeno salt. Because remember, this is just the egg, a folded egg that you bought. It don't have no salt on it. So we put a little jalapeno salt on it like that. That's going to tie it all together and bring it back to life. Y'all know jalapeno salt is like one of my favorites. We make this and we sell it in our store. So if you want some and don't want to make your own, you can go to our shop, livingfoodsfarm.com, go to kitchen items, and you can buy you some bottles of jalapeno salt, or you can make it yourself. Either way. So now, let me take another bite. Take it to another level. So good. Do y'all see that? I am literally eating me a breakfast sandwich, cheese melted, egg on there. You got the sausage, all fits in the muffin because we didn't cut the sizes to where it needs to be for the cheese and for the egg. Another thing that you could do is add some hot sauce. You could add a slice of avocado. You could add a slice of tomato. You could add you some grape jelly. You could dip it in maple syrup, honey. There's so much you can do with that. Also, you can do like a Dijon honey mustard and put on here to elevate the taste. But y'all, can you imagine just being able to go in your freezer and get you a breakfast sandwich to go with your juice, your coffee, your tea, or whatever you drink in the morning? Y'all. I was supposed to be showing y'all a taste. I'm not supposed to be eating this. It's so good. And I haven't eaten. So good. And the muffins. Y'all, these English muffins, you can put some butter on it, jelly, honey, peanut butter. So the time it takes, let's just say, the active time it takes, maybe 30, 45 minutes, maybe. Because anytime you're making bread, you mix it up, that's 5 minutes of your time. Then it has to do its own thing, rise and all that stuff. Then we, cut them out, let it rise again. Y'all let me eat the whole thing. So, so good. So good. Just imagine having that with some yogurt, fresh fruit, hash browns on the side, applesauce on the side, whatever it is you like to eat for breakfast. Having one of those, especially if you're ready to go, your kids on the way to school, grab and go, heat up, all that stuff. Have I convinced you enough to try this? You should try it. Make these sourdough English muffins. So all I'm going to do now is just make me an assembly line. I'm going to assemble all these and get them ready for the freezer. Okay, guys, we got it all packaged up. So we were able to get 16 packaged up. I actually had miscounted. I had 18 English muffins instead of 16. So I have 2 over here hanging out. And I just put me 2 more pieces of meat in the oven. So we're going to have a total of 18 breakfast sandwiches. So I packed them up individually in press and seal. And then I stuck them all in a Ziploc bag. So that way it has 2 layers of protection. And then whoever is eating at the house, they can just go in, grab one out of the freezer, heat it up, and the rest of the bag will still be secure. You don't have to worry about getting, them all kind of stuck together. They're all individually wrapped, which I think is fantastic. Now, these next 2 that I'm doing on the tail end, I'm just going to go ahead and put those in the refrigerator because I can assure you I will have that in the morning. The rest will go in the freezer, and we'll see how long these last. But I'm so excited that I was able to do this and found a recipe that I love, that I was able to do English muffins, which are so versatile. If you don't want to do breakfast sandwiches, you can just have the English muffin. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to learn the skill of bread making. I am still learning, but I'm so glad that I have learned the basics and I'm able to make bread for my family. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to perfect it on the yeast side as well as the sourdough side. But y'all, I make bread every single week for my family. I do not buy sandwich bread from the store for this house. I make it. The taste is so much better. It's so much fresher. And it's, once you learn it, it's easy. I understand that some of you may not have the time, so maybe you can do it on the weekend and not during the week. Figure out what works for you if you can make it work, but learn the skill if you don't know how to do it. So we made sourdough homemade English muffins. I hope that you were able to glean something from it. If you want to try this recipe and you don't have a sourdough starter, two things. One, I'll be doing a class on September the 29th that will be virtual and online, and I'm going to do a sourdough 101. It's going to be beginner basics, how to feed a starter, how to make a starter, how to maintain a starter, what is the feeding schedule, all the basics, so that if you want to learn how to do sourdough in this class, I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. You don't have to come with any pre-knowledge or anything like that. Now, if you purchase the class is going to be September the 29th. If you purchase the class, you're going to get, I'm going to ship to you a freeze-dried sourdough starter. So you will have a starter that you can use to rehydrate to start making your sourdough bread. But if you cannot come to the class, or you just need a sourdough starter and you don't want to wait until then, feel free to go ahead and purchase our sourdough starter that's in our shop. You can go to livingfoodsfarm.com, go to kitchen items, and you'll see the sourdough starter there, and we can ship it to you. Y'all, I'm excited. Look, I love good food. I love good food that these hands made, that I didn't have to buy. I love the fact that it is economical. Y'all, I did the cost and added up the just egg cost and the breakfast sausage cost to get how much it cost me to make each sandwich. It was $1.11. Now, you know you cannot go to any restaurant, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Burger King, whatever is in your area, and get you a biscuit and some meat with some cheese and egg on it for $1.11. And you sure can't get it plant-based for $1.11. So this is way cheaper, way economical. I know what's in the ingredients because these hands made it. And if you don't want to do the breakfast sandwich, then you still have a great recipe to go make your own homemade English muffins. They freeze well. So let's say you don't have kids or a big family. If it's just you and your husband or just you can put them in the freezer, and that way you have them for the month or for the upcoming weeks to just go grab and do something with. You could also make it like a savory application and do, probably like some sandwich meat or something on it. It didn't have to be breakfast food. I mean, the English muffin is just bread, so you can put whatever you want to put on it. Let me know if there's some other things that you do with your English muffins. Let me know in the comments. But I think this is a versatile way to get some stuff in your freezer that you can make yourself, and you know what is in it. I'm so glad that you guys joined me in the kitchen today. I had a blast. I'm so excited about these. And y'all forgive me for just eating all on camera. I mean, I'm blowing, I'm eating because the food is hot. Y'all, I know I do have home training. I let my eyes get the best of me, and I'm like, let me go and get this sandwich. Y'all forgive me, but y'all know. Remember, if you have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We do a lot of gardening content, a lot of cooking in the kitchen, cooking from scratch. This is all part of the gardening journey. Remember, gardening is a journey. Let's grow together. I'll see you next time, friend.